All right, so now we are moving to the next lesson in this part, which is about personality. So in this lesson, we were going to dive into something that is really interesting, our personality, the roles we often play, and the archetypes that might describe parts of who we are. So imagine you walk into a room, a family dinner, a meeting at work, or even a gathering with friends. Do you notice how you almost automatically slip into a certain role? Maybe you are the one keeping the peace, or the one making everyone laugh, or the one quietly observing in the corner. And here is the interesting thing. A lot of these patterns are not random. They are part of your personality, and they often tie back to something deeper, the archetypes and roles you have developed over time to feel safe, valued, or connected. Some of these roles are beautiful strengths. They are ways you naturally shine. And others, however, might be ways you have learned to protect yourself, even if they no longer serve you the way they once did. And the issue is that when we are not aware of these patterns, they can start running the show without us even realizing it. We might end up stuck in roles that no longer feel like us, or limit ourselves to the parts of our personality we think people expect. But when we do understand them, everything changes. We start seeing the full range of who we are, not just the roles we have been playing, but the ones we have been hiding. And that is where living authentically really begins. So in this lesson, we are going to explore your personality, your archetypes, and the roles you tend to step into. By the end of this lesson, the aim is for you to have a clearer understanding of these patterns, which ones feel true, which ones you might want to let go of, and which parts of you are ready for more room to shine. So we will first look at their definition. Then we will see why archetypes and roles matter for authenticity. Then we will have a breakdown of the different types of archetypes and roles. Then we will have a look at several personality and strength tests. And finally, the workbook exercises will help you identify your own archetypes and roles so you become more aware of them. So personality refers to the unique patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that make you who you are. Within your personality, archetypes are universal symbols or themes that represent common ways people express themselves, like being a leader, caregiver, rebel, or peacemaker. And these archetypes help us understand the deeper parts of our identity and the roles we naturally tend to play in different situations. As for roles, they are parts or masks we adopt in our daily lives. How we show up with family, friends, work, or in social groups. Sometimes these roles reflect our true nature, and sometimes they are learned behaviors we use to fit in, protect ourselves, or achieve certain goals. And together, archetypes and roles give us insight into the patterns behind our actions, helping us recognize both our strengths and the habits that might hold us back from living authentically. So knowing your own personality, including your archetypes and roles, helps you live authentically because it brings awareness to the natural ways you think, feel, and behave. And when you understand these patterns, you can recognize which parts of yourself are genuine and which are just learned behaviors or masks you wear to please others or protect yourself. And here is the impact. So once you're aware of them, you have a greater self-awareness. So you become more clear about who you really are versus who you are pretending to be. You have the freedom to choose. So instead of automatically slipping into old roles or patterns, you can decide which parts to express and which to change. You also have more genuine interactions. You connect with others as your true self, which leads to deeper and more honest relationships. You also have more balance and growth in your life. Recognizing your archetypes helps you appreciate your strengths and also notice when these traits might limit you, opening the door for personal growth. And finally, you have more confidence. You trust yourself more because you understand your natural tendencies and how to work with them, not against them. So basically, knowing your personality, archetypes, and roles helps you step out of automatic reactions and live a life that feels true and fulfilling. So exploring these roles and archetypes is a powerful step towards authentic living because it helps you understand what you naturally lead with in life, where you might be stuck in a persona, and which parts of yourself you have been hiding or underusing. Alright, so now we are going to look at the most common archetypes and roles and some definition of them in real life examples so that you can maybe identify yourself with some of them. So let's start with the caregiver. If you're the caregiver, you feel a strong sense of responsibility for others' well-being. You are naturally supportive, loyal, and you often put others' needs ahead of your own. So how it shows up in real life, while you are the friend everyone turns to when they are going through something. You also remember birthdays, check in on people, and offer help, often without being asked. You often say yes to helping others, even when you are exhausted. And in group work, you take on the role of making sure that everyone is okay and included. However, the shadow side of being a caregiver is that you might struggle to set boundaries, or you might feel resentful when care is not reciprocated. Then we have the rebel. You question roles, challenge authority, and often feel energized by doing things your own way. You are not afraid to disrupt what feels fake, unfair, or outdated. And here is how it shows up. You challenge teachers or systems that feel restrictive or unfair. You are the one in the friend group who says, why do we have to do it that way? You dislike doing things just because that's how it has always been done. And finally, you dress, speak, or act in ways that intentionally express your individuality. However, the shadow side is that you may push away structure that could be supportive for you, and sometimes you might rebel, even against your own best interests. The next archetype is the visionary. So here you think big. You think possibilities others don't. Your mind is often in the future, imagining, planning, inventing, or dreaming up what could be. And here is how it shows up. So you love starting new projects or brainstorming new ideas. You often daydream about the future, your impact, your career, how the world could change. You also see connections between things others might not notice. And finally, you are energized by conversations about innovation, growth, or what is possible. However, the shadow side of the visionary is that you may have trouble finishing things or staying grounded in the present moment. And next one is the peacemaker. So you value harmony and you are good at keeping the peace. You often meditate, listen, or smooth over conflict, sometimes at the cost of your own opinions or needs. And here is how it shows up. You avoid arguments, even if it means not sharing your real opinion. Friends come to you to vent because you are calm and non-judgmental. In group settings, you often try to keep things light or agreeable. And finally, you sometimes hide your emotions to keep others from getting upset. However, the shadow side is that you may suppress your own truth in order to avoid rocking the boat. Then we have the achiever. So here you are driven, goal-oriented, and you like to succeed at whatever you do. You tend to be productive, organized, and often measure yourself by results. And here is how it shows up. You get a thrill from setting and reaching goals, grades, competitions, projects. You push yourself hard and often take on more than others. You like being recognized for your accomplishments. And finally, you are often seen as the responsible one or high performer. However, the shadow side is that you may tie your self-worth to productivity, and you may struggle with rest or failure. The next archetype is the sage. You are thoughtful, introspective, and curious. You enjoy learning, observing, and understanding how things and people work. You seek wisdom more than attention. And here is how it shows up. You ask deep questions and enjoy quiet reflection. You often read, journal, or research just for fun. People describe you as wise beyond your years. And you may stay quiet in groups, preferring to listen and analyze. However, here is the shadow side. You may become overly critical, detached, or even reluctant to act without certainty. The next role is the jester. So here you bring joy, humor, and lightness. You naturally lift others' spirits, often using playfulness or jokes to make people feel comfortable. And here is how it shows up. So you use humor to break tension or bond with others. You are often the one who lightens the mood during serious moments. You enjoy entertaining, storytelling, or being the fun one. And sometimes you hide discomfort behind humor or sarcasm. However, here is the shadow side. So you may avoid depth or vulnerability by always staying in the funny role. Then we have the protector. So you feel responsible for the safety, fairness, or dignity of others. You step in when something feels wrong or when someone needs defending. And here is how it shows up. So you stick up for people who are being treated unfairly. You have strong values around justice, safety, and loyalty. You may feel like it's your job to hold things together at home or in groups, and you might seem tough on the outside, but you are deeply caring underneath. However, here is the shadow side. So you may become controlling or overly guarded, especially when feeling unsafe. And finally, we have the orphan or the outsider. So here you have learned to rely on yourself. You may feel like you don't quite fit in, and you value independence, realism, and self-sufficiency. And here is how it shows up. So you often think that you will just do it yourself. You have felt like the outsider in groups and families. You are skeptical of people who try to tell you how to live. And finally, you may crave belonging, but you feel safer keeping some emotional distance. However, here is the shadow side, is that you may resist connection or help, even when it is needed. Alright, so now I will just introduce to you optional tools for self-discovery, which are personality and strength tests. So you can use those self-assessment tools to gather insights about your personality, patterns, and strengths. So those tools are not meant to define you, but rather to give you language for who you already are. So here are a few ones you can take. So the 16 personalities test. So this one will help you identify cognitive preferences and social styles. Then we have the Strengths Finder test, which will reveal your top talent themes. Then we have the Enneagram test, which helps you explore your core motivations and emotional patterns. And then we have the VIA character strengths test, which will help you identify positive character traits like gratitude, creativity, or bravery. So basically, when you understand your personality patterns, including both your strengths and your go-to roles, you gain the power to choose how you show up. Instead of acting on autopilot, you can lead from the wholeness of who you are, not just the parts you have practiced the most. And of course, there's also plenty of exercises in the workbook that will help you identify your own archetypes and roles. So the first exercise will help you identify how you behave naturally in certain situations and help you identify the qualities and traits that describe you best. The second exercise will help you identify the archetypes that you connect with, that resonate with you the most. The third exercise will help you to think about the roles you naturally play in different groups. The fourth exercise will help you identify the recurring roles or behaviors that you will notice in yourself and help you identify if they are blocking you in some ways. And finally, the last exercise will give you prompts to reflect on those different archetypes and roles you are playing in your life and help you identify which one you show the most often, depending on the new situation, etc. And finally, don't forget to write down all the aha moments on page 7 of the workbook.